The moment Robyn's voice rose against Christine during mediation, something deep inside Kody seemed to shatter, not out of love but from the weight of guilt he had buried for years. Now, standing in a courtroom brimming with flashing cameras, restless reporters, sealed testimonies, and the faint echo of rain beating against the courthouse windows, Kody Brown found himself doing what no one had ever imagined possible, turning on the very woman he had once shielded from every storm. What unfolded that gray morning in Flagstaff was far more than a simple family dispute. It was a reckoning of loyalty, deception, and years of spiritual manipulation bubbling to the surface. Outside, the rain poured relentlessly, streaking down the courthouse steps as if the heavens themselves were trying to wash away the sins clinging to those walls. Inside Courtroom 4B, the air was thick, heavy, almost sacred in its tension. People whispered behind their hands. Everyone had already chosen sides, but none expected the quiet man who once defended Robyn with religious devotion to finally speak against her. Kody's hair was tied back neatly, his face drawn tight, his eyes hollow with sleepless regret. No wedding ring. No warm smile for the cameras. Just clenched fists and the rigid stance of a man realizing his silence had finally come due. Across the room, Christine sat beside her solicitor, calm but unflinching, her gaze fixed ahead. Never once glancing towards Robyn, Robyn sat opposite her, trembling, her pale hands knotted in her lap, mascara faintly smeared as if her facade were already beginning to crack. There was no sorrow in her expression, only a silent defiance, a dangerous stillness that felt colder than the storm outside. When the judge entered, adjusting his glasses with the detached precision of a man too accustomed to witnessing lives unravel, the chatter faded. "This hearing is now in session," he declared, his voice cutting through the silence. Docket 42B, Brown versus Brown, regarding defamation, emotional harm, and proposed restrictions of contact. Not a divorce, at least not yet, but something far more perilous. Reputation, faith, and control were on trial. Christine's solicitor stood first, a tall woman with sharp eyes and a tone that sliced through the air like velvet-wrapped steel. "Your Honor, this is not the story of a marriage gone wrong," she began, but of systematic emotional harm, of targeted manipulation and years of psychological gaslighting, carried out not in private but in plain sight, before family, community, and a national audience. She turned her gaze upon Robyn, who sat motionless. The defendant weaponized faith, twisted family ties, and sought to isolate our client from her children, her finances, and even her voice. Kody shifted uneasily in his chair, his jaw locking tight, his knuckles pale. The solicitor pressed on, her words gaining the rhythm of truth. "We will present messages, recordings, and testimonies showing a consistent pattern of behavior designed to alienate Christine Brown, and worse, a pattern reinforced and enabled by Mr. Brown himself." A murmur rippled through the gallery. And then, almost gently, she added, "But Mr. Brown is not the accused today. He is a witness to the cost of his silence." The judge nodded solemnly and gestured for Kody to approach. The man who once ruled his household with certainty now moved like someone crossing a minefield, careful, heavy, aware that every step might ignite something irreversible. He took the oath, his voice barely above a whisper. "I do." "State your name." "Kody Wynn Brown." "You were married to Robyn Brown?" "Spiritually since 2010, legally since 2014. "And Christine Brown?" His tone dropped lower. "Since 1994, spiritually. That ended in 2021 when she walked away." The solicitor's next question cut straight to the marrow. "When Christine left, what did you believe was the cause?" Kody inhaled deeply, eyes fixed on the wooden bench before him. "I thought she couldn't handle plural marriage. I thought she was jealous. I thought Robyn was simply misunderstood." He hesitated, his voice cracking. "I was wrong." Gasps rustled through the courtroom. Christine's eyes glistened, though her face remained still. "Christine didn't leave the family," Kody continued, louder now, his words trembling with conviction. "She left the pain, and that pain came from us, from me, from you, Robyn." His gaze sliced through the room like a confession carved in glass. "You manipulated our children. You poisoned them against their own mother." Christine's tears finally fell, but quietly, as if she'd rehearsed this moment for years in her mind. Robyn's lips parted in shock. Her solicitor tugged at her sleeve, urging silence. "Mrs. Brown," the judge warned gently, "you will have your chance." Kody's voice wavered but did not falter. "You told me she was dangerous, rebellious, spiritually broken, and I listened. I believed you. I let your whispers turn me into a stranger to my own wife." Did you ever confront Christine? No, he admitted. I judged her instead. I withheld love. I used attention as punishment because I thought Robyn's discernment was divine. Do you still believe that? No. Robyn had an agenda, and I handed her the keys. The solicitor presented printed messages as evidence. Robyn's own words suggesting Christine's children should be kept at a distance for the sake of spiritual safety, and warning Kody of reputation damage if he disobeyed. The room erupted in murmurs. Robyn pressed her hand to her mouth, her composure slipping. Cameras zoomed in, every blink, every twitch magnified for a hungry world. Christine then rose when invited to speak. Her voice, though soft, carried the authority of truth long denied. I didn't leave because I stopped loving him, she said, pausing as Kody looked down. I left because he stopped loving me. I begged him to see what was happening. I told him I was being isolated, that my children were frightened of Robyn's outbursts, that I had no say in my own home. Every time I asked for help, he called me dramatic. But what do you call it when someone uses your faith to keep you silent? When someone tells your daughter she's cursed for walking away? When someone records your tears and plays them back as proof you're unstable? The words hit like thunder. Robyn whispered frantically to her lawyer, but the judge remained unmoved. Christine ended quietly. I wasn't the problem. I was just the first one brave enough to leave. The courtroom seemed to exhale as one. The judge called a brief recess. People rose, whispering in disbelief. Kody walked past Robyn without a glance, his silence louder than any outburst. When they returned, Christine's solicitor introduced a gold USB stick, Exhibit 9B, the recordings. The mere sight of it drained color from Robyn's face. As the first clip played, Christine's recorded voice trembled through static. Robyn, I'm trying. I really am. Then Robyn's voice, cold, sharp, stripped of its television warmth, cut through. Trying isn't enough, Christine. You embarrass this family. You embarrass our faith. Gasps rippled through the gallery. Gone was the gentle, weeping Robyn known from the show. In her place was a tone laced with venom. If you want to leave, fine, the voice hissed, but don't you dare take the children. They need obedience, not your selfish emotions. Christine's voice broke in reply. They're afraid, Robyn. They cry to me at night. Silence, then that chilling response. They cry because they know you're weak. The room froze. Robyn covered her mouth, mouthing, That's not me. But the truth played on, indifferent. Kody's eyes shut, his jaw tight with disbelief. The second clip followed, louder, angrier. Christine pleaded, Please stop telling them God will punish them for loving me. Robyn's voice thundered back, You should fear God. You should be terrified. Your children should be scared because you're leading them into darkness. One reporter muttered under his breath, This is abuse. Christine's quiet sob in the recording ended the clip, her pain echoing in every corner. Robyn tried to explain herself, whispering, It was a bad day. I was overwhelmed. The judge did not respond. The third clip was worse, Christine begging, Please don't tell the kids Kody won't love them if I leave. Robyn's voice, almost serpentine, replied, Sometimes fear is the only thing that keeps children obedient. Christine countered, Fear isn't faith. Faith without fear is foolishness, Robyn retorted coldly. You poisoned his spirit, Christine. No, you did. Then came that final whisper, He chose me. He always will. When the audio stopped, the silence was suffocating. Even the cameras hesitated to move. The judge finally asked, Is there more? One final file, Your Honor. The last recording was eerily calm. Christine's weary voice murmured, I feel like I'm disappearing. Robyn's reply, quiet yet cruel, sealed her own undoing. Then disappear quietly. I don't owe you kindness. I owe this family stability. And that was the moment the mask shattered completely. For years, audiences had watched a polished, tearful version of Robyn Brown, the devoted wife, the misunderstood victim. But now, in the hollow silence of Courtroom 4B, the world saw the truth unfiltered. How faith could be twisted into control, how love could be weaponized, and how silence more than cruelty could destroy a family. Kody sat motionless, every word sinking into him like a confession carved in stone. Christine bowed her head, not in defeat but in release. And Robyn, once the untouchable matriarch, looked smaller than she ever had before, dwarfed by her own echoes. When the judge finally called the room to order, the rain had slowed to a drizzle, yet inside, the storm still raged. The courtroom air was thick with tension, every breath heavy with truths that could no longer be buried. Christine's quiet words cut through the silence like a blade. You are chaos, and Kody sees that now. Robyn didn't flinch. Her reply came cool and sharp as winter glass. No, I revealed him. The sentence lingered like smoke after a fire, haunting every corner of the room. Christine's eyes closed, pain carved deep into her expression, while Robyn's tears smudging her mascara fell not from innocence, but from fear. The facade she had maintained for so long was crumbling before the world's gaze. Kody lifted his head at last, eyes glistening with the weight of his own denial. I didn't know, he whispered, voice shaking. I didn't hear that side of her. I didn't want to see. Christine met his gaze for the first time in what felt like years, and what he found there wasn't anger or victory. It was disappointment. The judge's voice finally broke the heavy silence. Mrs. Brown, would you like to respond to these recordings? Robyn rose abruptly, her chair screeching against the polished floor. You don't understand, she cried, her tone desperate and shrill. I was trying to protect the family. She was tearing everything apart. Mrs. Brown, the judge warned firmly, compose yourself. But Robyn's fury spilled over. She made him miserable. She abandoned her faith and her duties. The words echoed hollowly, brittle and defensive. Christine's lawyer rose, her tone calm but piercing. Tell me, Mrs. Brown, where in Scripture does it say a mother must live in fear to raise her children? Where does it say humiliation brings unity? Robyn's face hardened. Don't twist Scripture. You don't know what God demands. Christine's reply was soft, but it sliced through the air. God would never ask me to fear you. The color drained from Robyn's face. She stumbled back slightly as if struck. You don't understand, she repeated, trembling. But the truth was simple. She had lost control of the narrative. There was no set, no confessional camera, no edited music to paint her tears as holy. There was only raw, unfiltered truth, and for someone who had built her power on secrecy, that truth was unbearable. Her lawyer tried to steady her, murmuring that she was under emotional strain, but Christine's counsel interjected firmly. These weren't marital disagreements, she said coldly. They were acts of coercion and psychological manipulation, directed not at her husband but another woman and her children. The judge raised his hand. Enough, we'll recess for lunch. When we return, we'll hear the plaintiff's witnesses. His gavel struck once, decisive and final. Robyn slumped into her chair, pale and trembling. Kody rose slowly, eyes fixed on her. You told me she was unstable, he said, voice breaking. But it wasn't her, was it? It was you. Robyn's breath caught. Kody, please. But he stepped back, eyes full of regret. I don't know who you are anymore. Christine rose too, quiet and graceful, walking towards the exit. Not triumphant, not smug, just resolute. She had nothing left to prove. She wasn't leaving as a victim. She was walking out as a survivor, reclaiming what was hers all along, herself. As the doors closed behind her, the sunlight broke through the clouds, gilding her path like a quiet blessing. Inside, Robyn sat trembling, stripped of her power, her image, her safety net. The illusion had finally shattered. But the storm wasn't over. When court resumed, Janelle Brown entered, her presence like a calm before the next wave. No longer a wife, but a witness. No tears, no pretense, just truth. She stepped forward, holding a folder in one hand and resolve in the other. Your Honor, she said clearly, I wasn't subpoenaed, but after what I've heard, I need to testify. Christine looked stunned. Robyn's eyes widened in dread. Even Kody's breath hitched. He knew this was the reckoning he could no longer escape. The bailiff swore her in, and the room fell utterly silent. I was Kody Brown's second wife, Janelle began steadily. I joined the family in 1993 and stayed until early 2023. I co-parented with Christine for nearly 3 decades. And I'm here because I can't live with myself knowing I stayed silent while she was torn apart. A ripple of shock ran through the courtroom. I watched Robyn manipulate this family from the inside, Janelle continued. And I can't let her do it again. She opened the folder. I kept a journal. Not daily, but often enough to track the shift, the moment everything changed. The judge leaned forward. Explain this shift, Ms. Brown. It began in 2012, Janelle said, when Robyn started changing the rotation schedule. At first, she asked for more time because of pregnancies. We understood. But then it was emotional strain, spiritual exhaustion, and eventually Kody was with her nearly every night. By 2015, he was spending 80% of his time at Robyn's house. Murmurs spread through the gallery. Christine began to shrink, Janelle continued, her tone heavy with sorrow. Her voice got quieter, her confidence dimmed. Every time she spoke up, Kody dismissed her because Robyn had already planted the seed of doubt. She paused. Abuse doesn't always leave bruises. Sometimes it's watching someone's light slowly die. The words hung like smoke. Did you believe Robyn did this intentionally? Asked the lawyer. Yes, Janelle said firmly. It was calculated. She used faith as a weapon. The judge raised a brow. Explain. She cherry-picked scripture to justify control, submission, punishment, loyalty. She called Christine rebellious, ungrateful, spiritually broken. And Kody believed it. Did you ever confront her? Twice, Janelle said. Once in 2018 when she told Kody Christine's daughters were out of control. I told her it wasn't her place. She smiled and said, I'm just trying to be their second mom. If Christine can't lead them spiritually, someone has to. Gasps filled the room. Robyn shook her head wildly. That's a lie. Order, the judge snapped. The tension was suffocating. And the second confrontation? Janelle's voice cracked slightly. It was when Christine decided to leave. Robyn told Christine's daughter that leaving the family meant losing God's protection, that she'd risk her soul. Christine covered her mouth, trembling. That's when I realized, Janelle said, this wasn't family drama. It was spiritual abuse. Her eyes locked on Robyn. You used fear to silence her, faith to control her, and Kody's pride to destroy her. Kody lowered his head into his hands. The judge reviewed the journal entries. This will be admitted into evidence, he said gravely. Robyn erupted, shouting, You're all jealous. You've blamed me for everything. The gavel struck hard. Order! Sit down or you'll be removed. Robyn sobbed, muttering, I was trying to save the family. Kody turned to her, his voice barely above a whisper. No, Robyn, you were trying to own it. The words broke her. He looked to Janelle. I should have listened. I should have seen it. Janelle shook her head. I'm not here for revenge. I'm here so the children know we did see it, eventually. The judge leaned back. This testimony changes everything. We now have corroboration and a clear pattern of coercion. He looked straight at Robyn. You'll need to prepare a full response before this hearing concludes. Robyn buried her face in her hands, undone by the very truth she had tried to control. As the court adjourned, Christine and Janelle embraced. No rivalry, no resentment, just shared survival. Kody stood apart, eyes hollow, the weight of his own silence finally crushing him. But just as the room began to clear, a young voice called out from the back. Everyone turned. A boy stood there, tall, strong, familiar. Garrison, Christine whispered. Kody froze. Are you here to testify, young man? The judge asked. Garrison nodded. Yes, Your Honor. I've been quiet too long. But now you'll hear what really happened inside our home. And as the room fell deathly silent once more, it was clear. What came next would shatter whatever illusion of peace remained. What came next would shatter whatever illusion of peace remained. The courtroom was heavy with silence, the kind that presses against the chest and makes every breath feel like confession. Christine sat composed but solemn, her gaze steady yet distant, as if she'd already made peace with the truth about to unfold. Robyn's composure, once her greatest weapon, had started to crack. Behind the trembling lip and quivering breath was the look of a woman who'd lost control of the story she had written for years. The judge, dignified and calm, called for order as whispers filled the gallery. When Christine finally spoke, her words carried the quiet power of someone who had endured more storms than any human heart should bear. I was never angry, she said softly. Just tired. Tired of fighting for peace in a house built on manipulation. Kody turned his eyes towards her, a flicker of recognition in them, the first sign that perhaps he finally saw what he'd refused to all along. Robyn's lawyer interjected, trying to restore dignity to his client, but the room had already turned. Janelle's testimony was still fresh in everyone's minds. Her detailed account of spiritual manipulation, financial deceit, and emotional coercion had painted a picture impossible to unsee. You used faith as a weapon, Janelle had said, voice steady, eyes unwavering. You wrapped your control in scripture and called it love. And now Christine's quiet dignity became the living proof of those words. Robyn shook her head in disbelief, her tears no longer symbols of virtue but of exposure. I tried to save the family, she whispered, though no one seemed to hear. Christine rose slowly, her chair scraping against the floor like punctuation to a long, unfinished sentence. You didn't save it, Robyn, she said, voice trembling yet firm. You just wanted to own it. A murmur of emotion rippled through the room. Kody's face turned ashen. His authority, once absolute, had dissolved before everyone's eyes. He looked smaller somehow, like a man stripped of excuses. For years, he had let division grow beneath the roof that was meant to symbolize unity. He had chosen silence when his voice could have stopped the damage. And now that silence echoed louder than any argument. The judge, weary but attentive, leaned forward. "Mr. Brown," he said, "you've heard these testimonies. Do you have anything to say?" Kody swallowed hard, words catching in his throat. "I thought I was leading my family," he said finally. "But maybe I was just leading them apart." For the first time, Christine's expression softened. There was no triumph, no vengeance, only the bittersweet relief of truth finally being acknowledged. Robyn, however, couldn't bear it. "You're twisting everything," she cried. "You don't know what I sacrificed." Her voice rose, desperate and hollow. "I loved him more than anyone." Christine met her gaze. "That's the problem," she said quietly. "You thought love meant possession." Robyn froze, her defenses collapsing under the weight of those words. The judge signaled for calm, his gavel striking once. "This hearing isn't about love," he said sternly. "It's about accountability." Yet, as he spoke, everyone knew it was about love, how it could be twisted, manipulated, disguised as devotion until it suffocated the people it claimed to protect. Janelle stood from her seat, her voice cutting through the silence. "You know," she said softly, "for years I watched Christine blame herself for everything that went wrong. I let her, because it was easier than facing the truth, that Robyn wanted control, and we all let her have it." Her words didn't come from anger but regret, the kind that lingers long after forgiveness. Robyn buried her face in her hands, sobbing quietly. There was no audience now, no show to perform for, just the raw reality of choices laid bare. Kody sat motionless, haunted by the realization that his own pride had been the silent accomplice in everything that had unfolded. "I believed her," he murmured. "Every word she said about Christine I believed. And now I can't undo what that belief cost us." Christine turned away, tears glimmering in her eyes. "You can't undo it," she said gently. "But you can stop pretending it never happened." The judge called for a brief recess, and as everyone stood, the weight of years seemed to lift, if only slightly. Christine walked towards the exit, Janelle by her side. They didn't speak, but their silence carried the understanding of women who had both loved and survived the same storm. Behind them, Kody remained seated, head bowed, while Robyn stared into the void of her own making. She had built her power on secrecy and self-pity, and now that the truth stood naked before her, there was nowhere left to hide. The reporters outside waited eagerly, cameras poised to capture whatever expression came next: grief, guilt, defiance. But inside the courtroom, something more profound had taken place. It wasn't a verdict. It was a reckoning. The illusion of the perfect family, the carefully edited image that had held millions captive, had finally fractured beyond repair. Christine didn't need validation from the court or from the world. The simple act of standing in truth was her victory. When she stepped into the sunlight, the November air felt clean, honest. Janelle glanced at her and smiled faintly. "You did it," she whispered. Christine shook her head. "No," she replied. "We did." Back inside, Robyn's sobs echoed faintly through the hallway, mingling with the shuffle of papers and the low murmur of voices. Kody didn't follow Christine out. He couldn't. Some distances are measured not in miles but in choices, and his choices had already carved an unbridgeable canyon. The judge's final notes would later describe the testimony as emotionally charged yet remarkably composed, but no legal language could capture what truly happened that day. It wasn't just a case closing. It was a dynasty collapsing, one built not on faith or family, but on the fragile scaffolding of control. And as the last gavel strike faded into silence, everyone present knew there would be no going back to the world that existed before the truth was spoken aloud. Before the truth was spoken aloud.